I'd like to welcome everyone. Good afternoon, Vamsi. Good afternoon, Ajaita. Welcome to the Spice Money Chaupal. This is a platform that we use to, talk to leaders like yourselves around some important themes that the entire ecosystem is talking about. Today, our topic is about transforming literacy learning spaces. We have the International Literacy Day coming up, and as we celebrate that, it's great to connect with two digital leaders like yourselves who are working in deep rural India and effectively in the assisted commerce space. A lot of us who live in urban India do not have the lens to look at rural India the way it operates, and therefore for all our listeners, it's a great opportunity for them to hear from you in terms of how you're driving literacy on the ground when it comes to rural India. Before I start, a bit about Spice Money. We ourselves are a rural digital and financial services platform. We work through onboarding entrepreneurs in rural India onto our platform to serve for their banking and financial services needs. And for us also, not only digital, but financial literacy is a huge agenda. And we keep that in mind as we onboard entrepreneurs on our platform. We have set up a kind of a digital academy at Spice Money, where we continuously run programs with using videos and other ways to communicate on financial product education, and we can talk more about that. But today it's great to have both of you. Maybe Ajaita, if we could start with you, you could just give a quick background about your company, what you do very quickly, and then we can get into the subject.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Dilip. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to this, the Chaupal, and it's a wonderful conversation to have. And Vamsi, it was great to be on the same platform as you. I feel like this happens quite often these days. I founded Frontier Markets in 2011. We are a social commerce platform that essentially connects deep rural customers to products and services, leveraging an assisted approach. So we have women entrepreneurs that are using our technology to help rural customers access basically everything and anything that they need, but through like a curated format. So our women are called sahelis. They are taking our technology and helping rural customers get access to everything from healthcare services to digital, financial, agri, consumer durables, you name it. Some call us the Amazon of rural India. We say that we're actually a bit more curated than the Amazon model because we actually really do listen to our customers before we bring solutions to our platform. We operate in Rajasthan and in UP. We have about 30,000 women entrepreneurs, 1 million customers, and really looking at seeing how we can do both, get right products, markets to the rural customers, but then also help women earn real income to be able to sustain their livelihoods at scale.
Thank you, Ajaita. We'll come back and talk about, how you're working with all the rural women. My compliments to having achieved the scale in a very short period of time. Vamsi, if you could just give our listeners a kind of an introduction on Hesa and what your company does.
Yeah, so myself, Vamsi Udayagiri, I'm the founder and CEO of Hesa. So we at Hesa are, redefining the way commerce is done at rural. If you typically look at the consumer sitting in a village, he or she has to literally step out of their village for either getting a financial transaction done or an insurance or an agri or whatever FMCG needs they have. And at an average, they do it 8-9 times a month, where at least one person from the family steps out of the village. So there is a huge, a potential, or the consumers who are sitting in a village are not able to get what they have to get, unlike an urban customer or a town consumer who has many avenues to get it, thanks to digital platforms, thanks to the fintech players who actually really kind of taken and adopted it. So we at Hesa are creating this influencer network of people called saathis who are sitting across multiple villages and trying to solve the problem for the same consumer who otherwise would have gone to 8-9 different places. Now he comes to one influencer who is solving his entire range of problems, from the fintech to agri to commerce to insurance to whatever he wants. So we are present in 3 southern states of Andhra, Telangana, and Karnataka. We have around 40,000 influencer network spread across these, and we reached out to around 30 lakh rural consumers, and driving this entire rural direct model. But the great opportunity that is lying, not only for us, but for everybody who is in this forum, is like there are 70 crore people who have not come online so far in terms of online commerce adoption, be it doing directly or do it through an influencer or a person who is doing it. So I think that's the great potential which we are trying to operate on.
No, I think that's a great point, Vamsi. 70 crore people have not come online, right? When we think about growth of e-commerce and large-scale platforms like Amazon and Flipkart, it gets like sitting in urban India, you feel like everyone's online. But effectively, last time I checked, online penetration as a percentage of retail GMV is just like 4.6% or something like that. So there's a huge opportunity. And I think assisted commerce is the way to go. So I'm loving the words saheli and saathis, that you apply. It's great. So maybe I could just jump into that, right? In terms of assisted commerce, how the model works, because to begin with, you have to get these sahelis and saathis on board, right? And by definition, they have to be digitally aware, digitally educated, being able to use a digital platform, because I'm assuming that all of them are working on a digital platform.
Mhm.
So Ajaita, maybe I come back to you and say that on the part of the sahelis, right? How do you go about first profiling the woman that you bring on board as sahelis? And, is there an education profile, or, is there a regular way where women have understood digital and how it works? So if you could just walk us through as to, what is the strategy for profiling and onboarding these entrepreneurs who are mainly women in your case?
So if we take a step back for a second, if we look at the network of women that we are actually approaching is really through the ready-made infrastructure that was created by the government of India, decades ago, right? Which is the Self-Help Group Collective, which ultimately, if you look at it today, under the National Rural Livelihood Mission, we're talking about almost 80 million women that are technically onboarded into this initiative, where they have been given some level of skills, some level of education. They are, have bank accounts, they have their own IDs, and they've been essentially, connected to either a nonprofit initiative or CSR initiative or something or the other, which has been giving them some levels of skilling or training. Many of them have even gotten access to smartphones through programs like the Internet Sathi Initiative or the Digital Sakhi program or the Udyog Sakhi program. And many of them also have been given opportunities to get small livelihoods. The challenge that we see for these women is, first of all, when you profile who these women are, in Rajasthan and UP, these are women that were married at the age of 14. They're like between 18 to 35 today. They have anywhere between 2 to 4 kids. Their education level is probably not even 5th pass, if at all. And the reality is that's kind of the base profile that we look at. What we actually ultimately understand is that these are women that are hungry to earn income. Their challenge is that they are essentially, for a lot of reasons, not able to work 8 hours a day, right? Because they're farmers, they're self-help group women, they're mothers, there's 100 things going on. And at the same time, because they can't work 8 hours a day, ideally, they also don't travel outside of the village that they live in, right? Because that in itself reduces their ability to really socially connect with the community that they have. So where they live and who they're accessing is actually who they know. So we see them as social influencers because in the village that they live in, they've been there forever. They know every single household. They know the kundli of that household. They're very trusted. And that's actually what we really want to harness on. So when we onboard these women, we just look for women that have some smartphone. They usually do not have any sort of digital literacy understanding other than how to turn that smartphone on. And then ultimately, we want to see whether they're hungry to earn income. And they get permission from their family to work. Then they go through a proper certification training program through us. It's a 4-day training course, so we really are teaching them how to optimize the use of that smartphone. But then we created a technology called the mini-ATMs app, which ultimately was also designed with these women in mind, who would be, we assumed, digitally unsavvy. So there's everything about the app was actually created by digitally unsavvy women. So it's super picture oriented, it's voice enabled. There's like a trainer in the tool itself to teach women what they need to do on a regular basis. So now these women can do everything from collect surveys to onboard customers, showcase products, process payments, and also even teach people things. But it's because of the combination between how we designed the entrepreneurial program in itself, what kind of training were we going to create? But then also, most importantly, we created technology that was supposed to be super easy and friendly to use for those who were probably never used to using any sort of technology before.
And Ajaita, all this training was online. There was no physical
in
training.
person. It's because, you know, and I think this is a really important thing, right? Like, unlike a lot of the urban livelihood models that we've seen, right? I mean, whether it's like a Misho model or others, rural families cannot necessarily be trained online only. So of course you can do ongoing support with online materials, you know, video, YouTube, WhatsApp, and voice. All of that happens on an ongoing basis. But the initial, I think there's an importance of understanding that's going to have to be a combination of high tech and high touch. So the trainings that we end up doing on the ground, those 3-day trainings, are in person, because we want them to be able to engage, experience, and learn in person. But then they also are learning on the go, right? So as they are using the tool, the more they use it, the more they get used to it, and we start giving them tasks accordingly to then build their certification ability to, you know, grow as a more tech savvy person.
Vamsi, as you brought on board these 40,000 plus, you know, saathis, what has been your experience when it comes to, you know, training and, you know, getting them to do more?
So I also agree with Ajaita on this point. While ongoing, you can do a lot of those online tools or digital tools, but I think high touch is very much important, because until unless that personal connect establishes, and more than that, there is a trust factor underlying which runs, and that's the key driving factor that runs in rural. So I think that has been working fine for us, but we have a process or approach where we have the field guy who gets in, identify these kind of a persona. Our personas are slightly different. Like, we have 4 categories. The first category being the first time micro entrepreneur who otherwise would have become a driver or a delivery boy or a security guard in an urban. So because these are the people who are proactive, who can move around village, who and who are doesn't need to literally train them, because they know how to use a smartphone. While having said that, large part of the transactions are influenced by women in villages, which is if you ask me, though the person's shop is registered on a husband, I think women only drives a lot of business in rural. So we have a good women and based entrepreneurs who are typically those SHE group women or housewives who are looking for an income levels where there is a set of training that needs to be done. And also there are certain products or services which needs advocacy based on the gender basis and all, and that's where really these kind of personas really help us. And then we have and a large part of our transactions come from agri value chain. So we pick up somebody who is a second, third generation from an agri community, because they understand the agri value chain and they can influence the fellow consumers there. So once we identify these personas, we also do a set of the physical trainings. And after that, we also do once in a week, once in a month, or twice in a once in 2 months, calling people at a block level or a mandal level, showcasing use cases, success stories, what has worked for a few Hesatis, which probably they can share with other Hesatis. So I mean, the point is, like, there is a large physical touch. But having said that, I think if we need to really scale it, I think we need to do a combination of physical as well as these online or digital literacy things, which probably we also started looking into.
If we talk about digital literacy, right, using the digital platform to educate these entrepreneurs, right, are there any experiments that either of you have run which have seen some results so far?
Yeah, so we are doing a couple of things, because one is having the data, the information on the platform is one thing which they can consume, but large part of these kind of influences are largely influenced by either a visual content or a media content. So because today, I mean, the point you said, today it's around 2.3% is the online adoption in a rural versus 12, as of now it is like 12 to 14% in an urban. But I think wherever these kind of an influencing capacities is there, obviously there is a scope to increase that potential. But the point here, what I'm trying to say is though they are, tech savvy or not tech savvy, though they can use the smartphones and all, they need to be, trained in terms of like how visually, it has to appeal to it, or how, through media we can do it. So we are running a live commerce pilot where today an end consumer can actually call the Hey Sathi, where there is a video online conversation that happens, or the Hey Sathi for his, kind of intervention. The same call Hey Sathi can connect to our call center team through a live video call, and then the transaction is being happened. So I think there are certain, these kind of pilots and experiments we are doing it. Basically, we want to understand how the behavior of the consumer will be changing, because today it may be largely physical, but I think years to come, I think there will be a lot of online adoption happening there also. So how can we be there?
Yeah, and I think,
So,
yeah,
yeah, sorry. So yeah. So, I mean, we've actually really worked on disrupting our model to get more digital. Some of the things that so a few quick tools, right? So, I mean, WhatsApp, I think, has been brilliant to be able to use to actually then start catering to more of the masses. So all of our end customers, whoever has a feature phone, they are now using WhatsApp to like kind of go through our catalogs, place orders and stuff on their own, which I think has been proven to be really interesting. The one thing that WhatsApp is not able to do, which I think is a difference in terms of urban versus rural, is the customer is not necessarily ready to make a payment, right, via WhatsApp. So they're ready to browse, place orders, and do that, which I think is great, which opens then the platform for video content and really being able to like ongoing educate the customer. But the second thing that I think has been interesting for us is that we have actually now, we've stopped looking at our technology as a commerce platform and actually started looking at it as an everyday like companion, right? So the idea is, could the platform itself become the tool to help others do everything that they need to? So now you can learn English on the platform. Now you can click on a banner and actually go through online training courses to learn how to open a beauty parlor, for example, right? And so the more we're starting to think about how to add more opportunities, I think, through the technology, the more it's actually growing interest for the end customer also. Of course, the sahelis end up playing a role in activating or like getting that message out there. But I do think that more and more, we're now converting our app into a B2C, and we're seeing that people are actually now consciously wanting to sign up and register and engage, because it's not just buying things online anymore.
Yeah. So Ajaita, that's a great point, because eventually the point that Vamsi made, right? 70 crore people yet to go online. So directionally, the idea is what it starts with assisted e-commerce. The question is, how will digital literacy get driven on the ground with the end consumer? And how many of them over time will come online themselves and have the confidence and the knowledge to start, ordering products on their own, browsing online, getting the benefit of internet, right? On their own. So obviously,
I think there's also the other infrastructure issue, right? So like, I mean, like, let's be clear, like everyone loves talking about the smartphone story, right? But let's be clear, smartphone penetration, if you look at this in perspective of how many people are potential users of the smartphone, even in a family, right? Typically there's one smartphone in that family, right? Even though out of 7, technically there could be 5 users, right? And so one is, how do we go from one phone to 5 phones in the same household? Second is, there is internet connectivity, we all know it, but ultimately, there is unfortunately this gap or perception of what deep rural last mile penetration for internet, for telecom companies are versus the reality, right? Because the top up reality, if we don't start, like people like Vamsi and I and you, if we don't start offering like doorstep top up, right, for internet connectivity, you're not going to have regular internet penetration to be able to even allow online browsing, right? So there are these like step-by-step pieces that still, I believe, need to be further penetrated. I think the content, the excitement of wanting to browse, the idea of being able to open a YouTube, which frankly, we have to give the benefit of the doubt. Actually, people know how to do a lot of this stuff. It's just that we're not necessarily tying the dots enough, right, to be able to take advantage, is my perception on this, right, in terms of if I look at the numbers.
Do you see during the COVID period, adoption of digital learning growing in rural? Do you think that, rural consumers, the youth, just education in itself, right? Did you see in your respective ecosystems? I realize, Ajaita, you're more focused, Vamsi, you're more south focused. Any shifts you saw in during the COVID period?
Yes. See, again, that's what I'm saying. There is a lot of upsurge In fact, rural has exceeded urban in terms of the data consumption. So for the first time during the COVID period, because I think that gave a lot of opportunity for people to look at various things. But again, I think how well that can be converted into an online adoption in terms of doing a transaction or a commerce, I think there is a long way to go. It. But in terms of adoption for a content, yes, I think today, at least in the geographies where we are present, at least one person in a family in a village has at least 70% of the village population. At least one person in the family has a smartphone, and they're able to actually consume data.
So what we did see, of course, was, absolutely an upsurge, right? Because then people were locked in, and ultimately people were bored. So you did start seeing people like wanting to be entertained, right, on a base level. I think what was interesting though was like wherever and I know because Vamsi, myself, we kind of created a coalition to respond to COVID together, right? Back in the day when the first wave and second wave kicked in, and we were looking at our states and trying to understand like, what can we do? So we brought in, for example, digital healthcare awareness. We brought in digital content in a way that was actually being leveraged through our, again, assisted platforms, right? Which opened the idea of that to happen. The gap that I still see though, in order for this to kind of increase, is that the people that are creating the digital content and the people that are thinking about the learning tools, their penetration to where we are operating is still few and far between, right? So ultimately the opportunity in my perspective would be that ideally we start tying, more and more partnerships, right? Where if we are the penetration pipe, how do we start integrating more of this kind of content, which I think could be driving a lot more efforts in terms of digital awareness and adoption.
So you mentioned video, right? So I'm just trying to understand that what are the enablers, right? So is video, I would imagine, is a huge way in which to, drive literacy or do education, but also I would get multilingual, right? The language would play a big role in the way we do it. And I'm just wondering that, with the sahelis and saathis who are digitally kind of becoming digitally native in a lot of ways, Ajaita, to your point that they can do lots of their daily life on digital, the role that they can play, right, in driving education on the ground, right, and helping people come online and helping people start using online, and doing it in a responsible way, right, kind of thing. So I guess there's a bit of a difference between commerce and financial products. I see like both of you also in the financial product side of things. Are you seeing, driving education around financial products versus being aware of what products are out there that you can go and order and get access to, which you cannot do on your own, right? Are you seeing any difference in the way, those products are being driven on the ground?
So it's a great question. So I'll maybe turn on this with two things. So one is, we are actually now incentivizing our women with the KPI of getting as many people on the app as possible, right? So each of our sahelis have gotten the target of like 50 to 100 people will now be onboarded on the app, especially if they have a phone. And I think that changes a lot of things to work consciously to try to get more people online. And then a part of getting someone onboarded, of course, is explaining to them why, right? And so I think that they've become really the enablers to make that happen. I think that when it comes to financial products versus physical products, to be honest, the way that we set it up on our platform, it's actually not that different. So when we get approached by any financial service company or a product company, ultimately it's all data driven for us, right? So we end up using our tech to ask 5 fundamental questions behind anything that we're introducing to really target out who that customer will be. And then you're curating the messages even on the platform. So even a financial product is productized on the platform itself. So people can, so the Saheli, when she's going in to explain the opportunity, it's all linked. I think what makes commerce platforms brilliant partners of financial services is that people that buy things need access to finance to then purchase it, right? And I think it becomes a really beautiful synergy, I think, in certain ways. What is critical, though, is that we, that are people that are putting these services on the platform, be very clear about how to guide our entrepreneurs on who to identify as potential customers and what to explain to them, right? So there's a link between what they do, what we have to do, and then also how we kind of sync the whole entire process together. There's more KYC, of course, as you can imagine, with your financial product process, which I think is not necessarily challenging because she just has to do work. But I think that the outcomes obviously become very different based on how we are doing our job in terms of defining who that customer should be.
Vamsi, how do you see your saathis playing a role in driving digital literacy for the end consumer?
See, I think in terms of personas also, like somebody who is a regular wage earning or sometimes of some kind of a salary in terms of agriculture. I mean, non-agriculture is the one where the digital literacy is higher. People who are on the agri side, the percentages are much lesser. So we based on the persona, we kind of have different strategies in terms of reaching out. But for largely the commerce, because commerce being the largest driver for our business, we wanted to actually educate the consumer directly with the visual and the media content, because it has so much of appealing that it just doesn't need to get into or browse by themselves to get all the details. Rather, kind of an interactive tools which kind of help them do that. In fact, we created certain Telegram and WhatsApp bots. In fact, and we also recently won an hackathon on ONDC where a farmer can actually create his own catalog with a very easy to do, multilingual, based on his own language, so that create his own catalog which can go and sit on the platform, where on the other side, let's say if Walmart wants to buy that farmers produce, they can see it. So I think again, depending on the persona, it differs, but somebody who wants to keep their catalog of products, I think there are we're using these WhatsApp tools and do it. For the end consumer to actually select and buy the products, we are largely doing on the visual or the video calling facilities. With an option of voice over controls and all.
No, it's amazing, Vamsi, and you talk about ONDC, and I know the vision of the platform, right, to literally unbundle the e-commerce value chain and allow for interoperability. I think with both of you in this whole e-commerce and rural space, I think that opens up a great opportunity, right, for small merchants in rural India to come on this platform, and buyers to be able to also access platforms like yours, and kind of opens up the ecosystem. But I think I guess for listeners, it's a great learning here that how the digital intermediaries in the form of saathis and sahelis can really play a pivotal role in enabling the entire community to go digital at some point, right? Because they will benefit from seeing as to how they're using digital tools to earn income, but also give them access, right? And therefore, at some stage, they'll want to go and get that access themselves as well. And I'm sure the role of the sahelis and the saathis will change and evolve with the consumer also going up the digital adoption curve. But it's great. I think I see a huge opportunity where platforms like yours can create new literacy learning spaces in rural. My compliments to both of you. It's been amazing having this brief chat with you. I'm sure listeners will really benefit from this. Godspeed to both of you. Like Vamsi, you said, rural data is upsurged to urban data. I think that's another great data point to have on this call. But I'm very excited by whatever I've heard from both of you, and I would really hope that platforms like yours continue to thrive and scale, and continue to drive literacy both on financial and digital fronts in rural India. So thank you so much for taking out the time joining us on the Spice Money Chaupal. Wish you all the best and wish you good luck. Thank you, Ajaita. Thank you, Vamsi.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Dilip. Thank you.
Thanks.